But a
physical
car
world, like
and a
the
building
concept,
are made
pattern.
basically of material elements, and it takes a spirit, soul, to make the car work, or to inhabit a building.
Yeah.
So the building itself doesn't have a soul, the car itself doesn't have a soul, but as soon as there is a living being, or a soul, or like an airplane, has to have a pilot to push the buttons or to turn on the key, then that becomes alive,
Yeah.
seemingly alive anyway.
There's also the concept of the building of the car, because we've got an idea of what a car is, so we'd recognize any car
Exactly.
on the planet. Doesn't matter if we've seen it before.
Yeah, every car, every building has to be conceived of ahead of time by a spirit soul, by a thinking being. And the brain, which is an extension of the soul, is conceiving of what this building is going to look like and how this car or this airplane is going to act.
So in Krishna consciousness, is the egoic mind seen as a hindrance to Krishna consciousness?
Yeah, because the mind is like the seat of all desires, of all the other senses. The mind wants more. The mind is telling the eyes to see more. It's telling the ears to listen to more. It's telling the tongue to taste more. So if one becomes attached to the mind, and I think that I'm the mind, it's a very detrimental thing, because the mind can be our worst enemy.
Well, that kind of comes back to my question before. Like, it seems to be the mind, the egoic mind, that wants to be more beautiful and powerful than others. That's why I was a little bit confused about that definition of God, of being like defined as the most beautiful, most effluent, most powerful.
Yeah, well, the mind is telling us that we have to be the master. And if the mind is telling us that we have to be the servant, then then the mind becomes spiritualized. That's a good use of the mind. Then the mind becomes a friend rather than an enemy. Because the mind is also very subtle. Isn't that right? Yeah. So according to the Bhagavad Gita even says that the mind can be our worst enemy or our best friend.
I had another funny discussion with Ariel about about how devotees view material life. Like the example I used was we went to this coal seam gas protest in Mukunda like some weeks ago, and I counted 3 devotees there. Apparently there were more, some told me, but I counted 3. And which is happening on this very road where the farm is on and gonna ruin all the bore water, pollute the vegetables, and basically, yeah, destroy a lot of the farm here. And so I said to him, you know, look, I mean, no matter how spiritual you are, you have to take care of Krishna's world. No, you have to be, no matter how much you strive to get away from material life, you still have to look at material life and feel what is right and wrong, and do what you feel is right or wrong, you know, like if you do not take care of Krishna's material world that he put you in and is only focused on the spiritual, you know, for me that's not really being very particularly Krishna conscious, you know, because the material world is also Krishna's world in a way. You know?
And what was Ariel's response to that?
Well, he was a bit, well, he went off to do the chanting on the street. I forgot what it's called that particular day. So he was busy, but he kind of had a bit of a feeling that the spiritual side was like the most important thing, and which it is in a way, but still, you know, the two has to coexist, you know.
Yeah.
I feel, at least, and I feel that maybe sometimes devotees can be a bit too caught up in spiritual world, like, and not feel like, yeah, materially present enough in a way.
Did you hear what he said? I think that what you said is basically true, and that he was talking to a devotee named Ariel, who's 16 years old, and he's kind of, you know, very enthusiastic, but very young and new in Krishna consciousness. That Ariel is Michael's brother, by the way. Michael's 18 and Ariel's, what, 16 now? Anyway, everything is, according to the Bhagavad Gita, everything is owned by Krishna. Bhoktaram Jagatapasam. The world, the earth, the cars, the airplanes, the temple, the rocks, it's all owned by Krishna. And Therefore, everything has to be taken care of nicely, and therefore the temple is kept very clean. But sometimes people are a little bit, what should we say, too spiritual. They're thinking that the things that are owned by Krishna is going to take care of them. But I also have to take care of them myself. So cleanliness, for example, is one of the qualities of someone who is Krishna consciousness. Keeping clean in personal habits, and keeping clean in one's neat and clean in one's workplace and one's house and one's car. That's part, and dressing and all that is part of Krishna consciousness.
What would be the difference between Krishna consciousness and a purely Krishna belief system? Like, for example, someone could do something because he feels consciously that this is the right thing to do, like, for example, not to eat meat. Or one could do it because there's like a school or like, you know, some teacher or some organization that says, you know, that's the right way. Is there any difference? How can you know the difference?
Well, there's two aspects to Krishna consciousness and the philosophy. And one is behavior, the way we act, the way we are. And the other is what we believe. So there's two different aspects, and they both have to be embraced. Like, for example, it was a very sad thing that so many people died when the trade towers were run into by airplanes. It's a very sad, and people feel very unhappy when that. A devotee should feel very unhappy when many people like that die. It's a great tragedy. And at this, philosophically, though, we say, okay, it's their karma; they deserve to die. So both things have to be considered, because it would be very, very callous and very unfeeling to think that that's okay if all those people died. And the same thing with the Holocaust. It was a very sad thing when all those people died. And there's a lot of tragedies going on in the world, like Michael was pointing out, that human beings are destroying the world that they live in. The environment is being destroyed, and that's a very unhappy thing. But philosophically, we can say, well, you know, it's karma. It's just, you know, it happens that way. And I have to be Krishna conscious, and I'm not going to worry about those things.
What about people that have done good by everybody their whole life and then end up getting cancer? You know, like,
I mean, why do bad things happen to good people?
A child that he didn't even have a chance to do good or even do bad, and he just died.
According to the principle of reincarnation, maybe that person did a lot of evil things in a previous life, and therefore that person got cancer. So that's the karmic aspect of it all. It seems like...
Wouldn't it weigh up all the good things that he's done in this life?
Not necessarily, because he may have had many lives of being very, very, very evil and killing many people.
Isn't it? You don't really remember your past life, do you?
No, but Krishna does.
That's right.
And the karmic atmosphere remembers. So we may think that all babies are innocent when they're born, but they're not, because they've lived before, according to the principles of reincarnation.
So you can say that they've got innocence in them.
Pardon?
You can say that they've got innocence in them. That's why they've got.
They've got innocence in them, but what I'm saying is that they're not innocent, even though they have innocence in them. They can be trained to be very, very good person, and they can be trained to be very bad people. It depends on what kind of training they get.
It depends on the lives and experience that they've lived. You know, a kid grows up in a horrible town, you know, and all they've learned is how to, you know, get drug money and give drug money. Then that's all they're going to become.
That's true.
Very few get out of it, but a lot of the time that's all you're going to become, because it's all you've been learnt to become.
That's true, and many devotees were brought up in that kind of an environment, and they at some point they had a change of heart.
Is there in Krishna consciousness the concept, there's always like this philosophical question, free will or
Destiny.
Destiny, yeah. Like karma sounds a little bit like destiny, but then on the other side, what's the purpose of it? You know, like say I was a bad person in my last life. Wouldn't it be the idea of saying, you know, in this life I get a new chance to do it better anyway?
Yeah, well, this is something that's been argued back and forth. Karma. Do events shape people, or do people shape events? Are we ruled by destiny, or do we have free will? And you know, there's no easy answer, because this is one thing that's argued back and forth for centuries, and no clear answer has been given. But one way the Krishna conscious people is think of these things is that both things exist at the same time. You have destiny, and you also have free will. And a very gross example of that is in this country. If you drive on the right side of the road, you have the free will to drive it, but destiny will say that it's very dangerous, and you may get killed, or you may kill someone else. So that's a gross example to show how destiny and free will can exist both. They can both exist simultaneously. So this is what happens in Krishna. And by karma, according to karma, we can say that, like, for example, if someone commits abortion, we could say that, okay, that person was very sinful in a previous life, therefore he or she deserved to be aborted. But abortion is wrong, because that's a behavioral aspect of it. And it doesn't really matter whether the person was sinful or whether the person was very religious.
Isn't it a bit judgmental?
Yeah, it is judgmental.
That person deserves this because of this, you know, like, but you know, you don't know that person from the bar of soap. You don't know who that person is. You don't know how that person's lived. You know, so to me that's extremely judgmental.
It is judgmental, and we have judges, for example, in courts of law. The judges who are making a judgment, who are very judgmental, are generally not sought after. Even they might sentence someone to death, but someone doesn't blame the judge. You killed my son. You sentenced him to death. So it is, but the law of karma is like that. And Krishna is like that. And actually, Krishna is not like that. But Krishna has his agents, like Yamaraj, who are judgmental. And we have something in some religious philosophies called the Last Judgment, where you're at the time of death, your life is considered to be good or bad, and you either go to hell or heaven.
So is there such a thing, like a heaven-hell principle?
There's a principle like that, but the chanting is so powerful that if